In marketing, there is an excessive focus on calls to action, ROAS, cost per click, KPIs. We love these metrics. Our bosses love these metrics. Our clients love these metrics. They make us feel good about the campaigns that we're doing in marketing. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about something different than that typical lead generation type of marketing model. We're going to talk about demand generation. It's playing the long game with your marketing. You have to have patience. It's all about nurturing the future client, having them find you, having them come to you when they're ready to buy. You have to have that patience. It's much harder to track, so you have to have a little bit of faith as well. But it has a lot better return on your investment if you have that faith than the typical lead generation. It's definitely something you should be adding to your marketing, not replacing. The lead generation still has a place. And especially if you're in the B2B space, it's about becoming a thought leader. It's about becoming somebody that another company needs a solution, and you're the first in the first few companies that they think about. It's about creating that trust. And so I'm going to talk today with Reggie James about demand generation. He is the founder and CEO of Digital Clarity. He's the executive director of the DBMM Group. He's joining me today from Surrey, England, which is just outside of London. He helps CEOs grow their business in the digital economy. So it's perfect for this conversation. So thanks for joining me, Reggie. I appreciate you joining me on the show.
Jim, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm delighted to be a guest. I'm a big fan of the show. I've seen some of your episodes, so absolutely delighted to be here and hoping to add some value that your listeners and viewers can take away and actually apply.
That's great. So I want to start with a topic that I covered on a previous episode that I haven't had a chance to go back to. And I don't know if you have followed along on the Snoop Dogg Solo Stove controversy situation, have anything on that?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay, so I'll tee it up for you. But
Please
what
do.
happened, and I can still consider it the best ad of last year. Certainly the best ad partnership from last year. But Snoop Dogg, great guy, everybody loves him, avid weed smoker, put out some teaser posts that he was giving up smoke, left out, that it had anything to do with marijuana. And long story short, turned into an ad for Solo Stove, which is a smokeless fire pit, basically. It had insane numbers. Everybody watched it. Most people liked it. But fast forward a couple months down the road, the CEO got fired because they didn't generate enough sales. So I think this is an excellent case study for, was this really lead generation? Because I actually don't think it was. Or was it demand generation? Which I think it was very successful at. And if the company knew what they were doing, they probably wouldn't have fired that CEO, because something tells me that demand is there. But as you've said in other podcasts I've listened to, where you talk about this, not everybody's ready to buy when you hit them with a lead generation. But come summer, I know they did this promo in November. No one buys fire pits in November. They buy them in the summer. Solo Stove will be on the top of people's minds. And so, I wonder if they just had it wrong in their mind as to what they were actually trying to accomplish.
It's a great case study, Jim. I think from my understanding of it, now that you mention it, yes, I do remember a lot of it and all the controversy around it. The reality is it's a piece of content. It's something, number one, if we kind of deconstruct it a little bit. So Snoop Dogg, he's a guy who has spent years cultivating his personal brand. And the reason he could do what he did, like he cares what he does, he adds his name to lots of things. But so let's look at it from his side, and let's look at it from the organizational side as well, and to your question. So firstly, as Biz Stone, one of the co-founders of Twitter, once said, you work hard for 10 years and everyone says you're an overnight success. Right. Someone like Snoop has been working on his brand directly and indirectly, sometimes for all the wrong reasons, depending on which side of the fence you sit, or for all the right reasons. Attitudes change, people change, etc. So he was perfectly placed to be that individual. The company the stove company, is a classic example of where we again are trying to look at an opportunity but put it into a box, and buyers, prospective customers, are very, very wary of that. They don't like anything that's how can I put it, forced on them, if you like.
Right. And absolutely.
And you have a window of opportunity. So you have a piece of content. It's great. Had they done it in the right way, I know hindsight's 2020, but had they done it in the right way, that CEO, that individual would not have been fired, and he could have taken that content and used it in a much stronger, better way, certainly in a few months' time. And but you have an opportunity where there are things like this happen all the time in our world, in the business world that we operate in the B2B and in the tech space. There are similar examples of where you will get an individual, a B2B influencer, create an opportunity, but when things like this happen, very few people are prepared for it. They don't measure anything. They have no measurement in place. And it's a little, in answer to your question, it's a bit of both demand and lead. They were creating, leads were generated prospectively from a demand that was created by a piece of content. And one of the most important things that you said is that people aren't in the market to buy. They're ready to buy when they're ready to buy. And certainly from in something that's so seasonal, you have to be very, very key when things like that happen. But the 95-5 rule, yes, you're absolutely right. I talk about it all the time because a lot of people do. That's okay.
Apologize.
Grab some
I'm
water.
getting over a little bit of a cold.
There's a lot going around there, Jim. So, yes.
Yeah. Tell me the 95-5 rule. This is interesting.
So
tell me.
The 95-5 rule is very much it was done by LinkedIn and a university, a marketing university in Australia. And they looked at they looked at a ton of data. So if you're selling software and a company buys software, say you buy a CRM system, you are not going to buy another CRM system for quite a number of years. But when you are, you will be the one in control. So the way it works is that when people engage with your brand, say they make an inquiry or they want a demonstration or they want some information, download an ebook or a playbook or whatever it might be, what they are doing is they are genuinely interested in making their mind up on something that's prompted them to think about what you are offering. 95% of the time when they engage with you, they are not in a position to buy. They're very much, if you like, at the top of the funnel, making a lot of those inquiries. But what normally happens within sales departments and marketing departments go, oh my goodness, we've got a lead. We've got a marketing qualified lead. Sales goes wild and starts bombarding this poor individual with, hey, you downloaded our thing. Hey, or 2 days later, hey, it's me again. I'm just bumping this up to the top of your inbox. Yeah. And they basically turn off the potential buyer. So this happens all the time through a very blinkered view of sales, a blinkered view of the buyer, because what you really should be doing is nurturing that contact, educating that contact, building a relationship with that contact, and trying to understand what that contact actually wants. Buyers are very much post-pandemic in the B2B world. Buyers are hugely in control. And what we help our clients do is to help them understand where those buyers live, help them understand the landscape of things called buyer committees, where you have people within organizations who say, right, we've got a problem. So what's sales? Sales is creating an opportunity or solving a problem. So we help people define that, but also help them understand where they live, where those people eat, drink, live, who the ideal customer profiles is. Not just one person, but it's numerous people. You could be that initial inquiry that I touched on could be the 10th person in the deal team. initially getting that information, they may not be the decision maker. The decision maker may be the actual user. So there's lots of complexities within that. What we need to be able to do as a brand is to be able to educate those prospective customers who are looking at us, that are known or unknown to us, who are engaging with us, and help them when they're ready to buy, that we are their number one choice and that we nurture them. There's a software called Sixth Sense, and they worked out that normally people shortlist, buyers normally shortlist 4 vendors, and the first vendor that they engage with, that they are interested in, is normally the first person they go with. It's almost a very sort of almost 80%. So if you're called in to do a pitch or to pitch for a piece of business and you've not been nurturing that client, likelihood is you're just part of the beauty parade. You're just making up the numbers. So they can say, yeah, we've checked out a few companies, we've done some evaluation on pricing, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we know what it's like when you're chasing that client up, and it's like CSI New York. You can never get hold of them. They've disappeared.
Right.
They've totally disappeared. Right. So it's that kind of scenario. So we try and help avoid that. but way before all of that, we try and help customers understand who they are. So yes, so that's the 95/5, and there's lots of variations. I think all of it, Jim, really, as in life, really reflects the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. 20% of your customers will make up 80% of your revenue, etc. So,
absolutely.
In fact, I was reading the book today, which I just oddly enough is a great book. I'm not here to plug anything, but this is a book by a guy called Perry Marshall. It's called 80-20 Sales and Marketing.
Right. I like it.
And I just thought I'd share that with I'll send a link if you want, and if your readers are interested.
Yeah, we'll link to that.
But it's a fantastic book. I cannot recommend it enough, because it also means that you can focus your energy and what you do with clients to the core 20%, rather than rushing around trying to do everything. It's a very, very interesting book, which I was reading this morning. So yeah, just happened to have it there.
So you said a couple interesting things in there. One was, you mentioned CRMs, which, HubSpot is one of the big players in that market, and they are doing demand generation in a very interesting way. And they do create some of their own content, but beyond that, they've created a podcast network where a bunch of the podcasts that I listen to in the marketing space are under the HubSpot network, including my favorite other marketing podcast other than this one, which is This Old Marketing. They just recently joined them. And so it's very passive demand generation. So when you think of business, you think of HubSpot. And so again, it's the long game for them. They are getting their name is mentioned, it's on all of the cover photos, and it's mentioned in the beginning of all the episodes, but it's not a hard, they don't have their hand out. I guess that's the big difference with demand generation, is you don't have your hand out, and you're not pushing either. I think in the episode I heard where you talked about demand generation is that push pull. This is about the you're sort of pulling them towards you. It's a gravity, right? So it's, I want you to slowly move in my direction and think about me the next time you're going to upgrade your CRM. And they're doing it in an excellent way by just surrounding themselves with other thought leaders. And I do think they have a couple of self-produced shows, but by and large, it's other people that they've brought in that they think are good. And I think it's an excellent way to do that and be part of the conversation.
100%. And I think that a lot of companies, a lot of larger companies like HubSpot, are realizing they still have a very large lead gen business, which they still do. And I think fundamentally, though customers hate to be bombarded with things like lead gen, being spammed or whatever, there is a role for that to play. But we're talking about demand generation, but yeah, it very much is about creating content, but creating content in the right way that's going to engage with your audience. I think previously on somewhere else, somebody mentioned to me that in 2023, the word of the year on Merriam-Webster's, the online dictionary, was authenticity, authentic.
Oh, wow.
And there's a reason for that, because people are looking for something that's real. So if you put your hand on your heart and you create something that's really you, and remember, you've got to define who you are first, which can be, your value propositions and all these kind of things and why you do what you do. If you can nail all of those things, which is something that we spend a lot of time working with our clients on, if you can nail those things, then the communication you create, which comes from a place of authenticity, something that's real and heartfelt, that comes across in your marketing, comes across in your communication, comes across in your in everything that you do. And I think that's a very important point. It's not just about creating a ton of content, because otherwise it just becomes noise and equally annoying. But so authentic based sort of marketing is really key. And I think what we are finding as well is a return to brand. I think a lot of people are really understanding that actually, hey, hang on a minute, this is all about brand. It's about what people say about you when you're not in the room. What is it that it's not about you hitting people between the eyes. It's about helping people make the right decision. And I think
Absolutely.
we're seeing brand come back in a big way on aspects of every single aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I wonder if, so authentic, I didn't hear that, but that's super interesting. And I wonder if that's the flip side of, so if if you were going to ask me to guess what it would be, I would have guessed it would be AI. So if there's a flip side to AI, it's authentic, right? So AI is the complete polar opposite of authentic, because it is a conglomeration of all other thoughts. An authentic thought or a genuine thought is something that comes from just you. Obviously, you are bringing in your own mini language model, your personal,
of course you are, yes,
language model, but it's still an authentic thought or a genuine thought. And I do think that part of this demand generation and the why it's taken off is that there's so much of this inauthentic content out there. I mean, it takes less than a minute to create a blog post about a topic that is completely inauthentic.
Yes.
It takes
absolutely.
less than a minute to create a post for LinkedIn that says something about your industry that is completely inauthentic and might have some traction, but doesn't really say anything, or doesn't say anything new. It's just about, it's a clickbait more than anything. And, if you're paying attention, these are very easy to spot, and it's disheartening, and it's also annoying to find all of these, because it's clutter, it's noise, and it's making a lot of these, platforms less enjoyable. So we crave that authenticity. We crave the conversation of the one-to-one real people saying what they really believe, whether it's right or wrong. We crave that.
I couldn't agree more. And I think this is where, when we're looking at things and looking at measurement, and again, not all data tells the correct story. There used to be an old saying that, what gets measured gets, fixed or whatever. The reality is not everything you measure is actually 100% correct. There's no, I ran I helped build and sell and exited a tech business that was one of the first Google search management tools used by media agencies. And it would manage all the bids, the Google bids and various other things. But when we looked at that data, and everyone's going, data's the new oil, that's the new thing. The reality is attention is the new oil. It's actually, there is so much, like you say, Jim, that there is a lot of noise out there, and all that people are doing when they're not thinking this through or have no strategy or plan is they're just creating more and more noise, and they're actually damaging their brand because people are associating, gosh, these guys again talking about some BS about whatever. And it becomes it's a real issue. The problem is real. in terms of what's being generated. So yeah, I totally agree. We have to try and I wouldn't say less is more. I would say that certainly more good stuff is better. If that makes sense. So five things that resonate with 2 or 3 people is really great than 100 pieces that resonate with no one. And I think that's and it's such a waste of energy and time, even though it's but a lot of this, Jim, I think it comes from the top. You've got these really archaic measurement systems that exist to this day. Let's measure clicks. Let's measure, downloads. Let's measure. Well, let's think about why did people do that in the first place rather than the download themselves? Maybe because they're interested in reading what you're giving or want to learn more. They don't necessarily, going back to that original thing, want to buy. So let's help them make some of those decisions. Let's nurture some of those people. And I think it's understanding that's going to be absolutely key. So I think, I think we're seeing very similar things in the sense that there is a real need for that authentic approach. We can use AI, absolutely, but let's use it as when we're creating those prompts, let's add the value, let's add our human value into that, and then create the iron out the fluff, if you like. So it actually resonates with people. I think you're going to see a lot of changes in terms of how people react to mass communications. Mass communication generally doesn't really land with people unless you're a very, very big brand and you've already spent all that time building that brand. Hence the Super Bowl ads and all these sort of things. All of those ads are pretty big, or there's a potential launch. So yeah.
Right. And they, so again, there's 2 pieces to this. It's not that you don't do lead generation. That's still part of it. Just I guess what I'm recommending is making this demand generation part of how you advertise and part of how you market yourself will make the lead generation more successful and will nurture somebody, again, that you have to have that patience for 2, 3, 4 years down the line that you won't know where they came from. Did they, I want to talk a little bit about, what to do for demand generation in a second. Like what are the actual best ways to do this? But one of them is podcasting. And that's part of why, there's a number of reasons why I started this podcast, but one of them is I want to grow my business, Skyline Studio. And I'm not a big fan of sales. I'm bad at networking in that way. But this is a way I found that I can connect with people like yourself, and we can have these conversations. And one of my goals for 2024 is to connect more with the audience themselves. So start asking them questions, not with my handout. I don't want their business now. If they're ready, I'm happy to take it. But the goal is to just communicate with them and see why are they listening? What do they like? What don't they like? Having a real conversation without needing something in return. I think that there's too much of, I'm not going to waste my time if I'm not going to get an instant payback. People know if you're looking for yourself only. They can feel it. You start having a conversation with a seasoned salesperson at a networking event, and it's really obvious how they're structuring a conversation. They're great. I mean, when I watch them, it's like magic.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's also pretty obvious that they're looking for a sale at the end of this conversation. I'm not. I'm looking for a future conversation, I guess is,
yes.
What I, and why I like podcasting, why I've always loved listening to them and why I've enjoyed doing it. I didn't have a word for it, demand generation, but that's really what it is. It's why I'm doing this. It's why you're going on podcasts. It's a thought leadership thing. It's about being part of the conversation. And I think it's one of the best ways to do it, for sure.
100%. I think you've hit the nail on the head, Jim. I think that there is when you say networking events and you see the sales guys, the dark arts of selling. Yeah. I think people kind of see through that. I think people now, they're very much in control, whether you're a consumer, whether you're a business buying something or whatever it is. You'll have made your mind up on who you're going to use because you've done your own, either consciously or subconsciously done your due diligence on the brand, on the product. If you're buying a phone or a pair of sneakers, or you're buying a big piece of software or whatever it might be, you'll know pretty much what you're going to buy before you bought it. And if you are an Apple person, it's going to be very unlikely you're going to change to Samsung. It's going to take a lot for you to switch over to another brand. So a lot of these brands trying to push all these things to you, it's going to be very difficult. Whereas someone like Apple, they do a counterintuitive thing. We're launching this new product. It's hugely expensive. You probably won't be able to afford it. And then they've got queues going around the block. And we used to call it the Prada principle. I think Harvard did a study on it, where when Prada, the fashion brand, when they would launch a handbag, they would literally cover their one store in Milan, lots of newspaper, and just show a tiny little bit of this bag. And then they'd send these shots to all the journalists and everything else like that. And then they'd do little teaser campaigns, and then they'd, give a date of a reveal. By which point, people are clamoring, already put orders in for this bag. So they understand a lot of fashion brands, a lot of brands that have been doing this for a while. They understand their audience. They understand secondly who they actually are, and they understand how to communicate with their audience, because that audience likes that. They have a very hardcore group who want to buy it. Then there's the people on the periphery that they want to attract, because it's a aspirational brand. I might have to save all my money up just to buy this kind of thing. But once I've got it, there's a value to it. And I think you can apply that across the board to so many of these. There's so many examples. So Prada's creating demand. It's been doing it for over 50 years. And it just didn't have a name. The people called it fashion marketing, and they do it very well. Spring, summer collections are nothing more than creating demand, etc. So in the business world, a lot of people, very clever people, started looking at it and saying, hang on a minute, why are we doing this for what we do? And applying those principles and being able to do all those different things. So you asked something there, Jim, about what are the different demand generation sort of channels, if you like, or things that you can do. And I think that like with anything in life, you've got to try it out. You've got to get in front of it and try it out. And it will take time. You're not going to get the six-pack overnight. You sometimes are going to have to wake up at 5 a.m. and do the run. You're not going to have that extra slice of pizza or whatever it might be, whatever your journey you're on. So I think that the idea of using different things, and podcasts are very, very powerful, is also the way people measure what's successful. So attribution is a very, very big thing. So using all the channels. So when somebody actually engages with you further down the funnel, if you like, if we're still using the funnel analogy, the initial demand may have been created by a podcast, and then another podcast, and then something else. And then they've gone, oh, I love Jim's podcast. I love thing. I'm going to use Skyline. I really like what they're saying. I love what they're talking about. We're going to be renewing our contract with our next agency in 3 months' time. Let's shortlist Jim, sort of thing. But then what happens is as they're going down the funnel, the more deeper engagement will happen. So it could be another piece of demand, a blog that they've read, or another video that they've seen, or whatever it might be. But a lot of these are not measurable, or they're harder to measure, but we know that demand is created by them. Prada can't say at the end point, when they, using that example of the new handbag, it's only right at the end that they start running ads in Vogue, but that's a real engagement piece. That's there's the bag, bang. They've done the editorial. That's demand. They've done all these the blogs, all the fashion bloggers. They've done the videos. All that. That's all demand. But it's really right at the end when the people are engaging. They've already created it. People have already shortlisted. Prada is the one that they're going to buy. So for us, the measurement it's harder. It's what people call dark social, because it's stuff when you get an inquiry, and that's the beautiful thing is when they get an inquiry and you've got, where did this guy come from? And then you ask them,
it's the type of thing that you can only measure if you have real conversations, and
Correct.
A lot of our, we're a smaller agency, and a lot of the conversations, I ask the question, where did you find us? And we'll find out that it came from somebody who knew somebody,
Yes.
So that's a demand. That's probably demand generation at its best. So the funnel analogy, I know we spoke about this last week, but the better analogy that I'm hearing about more and more is the hourglass. So at the sale point, so you have demand generation up here, and at the very bottom, you have evangelists. These are the people that are going to talk about you and kick someone back up to the front, to buy from you again. So for smaller companies, especially, this is, how companies grow as they're starting off. And so we'll ask the question, how did you find out? Oh, so I knew so-and-so mentioned it, and I checked you guys out, and I saw a blog, or I saw your website, or we've had clients that they've come to us with inside jokes, and we'll wonder, like on our website, for whatever reason, faxing drives me crazy. I think it's like one of the weirdest things that people still send faxes. And so our fax number on our website is 1-800-DON'T-FAX. And I'll have people mention that to me, like in an initial call, like, and I'll like, so they clearly read our website well, and like they that caught them. It was, they did their research. They saw something on our website that spoke to them. That's one of the jokes that's sort of, we have a sort of jokes peppered through our site, and they'll come to us as if they knew us. And so you have to, talk to people about this stuff. This is how you know what's working. There's no KPI for this. There's no, you can't put this on a chart. This is something that's measured in conversations and can be refined and finessed. And it's really important when you're building those relationships that are going to be lasting ones, where someone will re-refer you to somebody else, and that's how you grow.
100%. I think the hardest thing is convincing a board or or management that when you're looking at that investment cost on a spreadsheet, that you've got to see that as an it has to be an investment. It's not a metric. It's not a cost. Let's put it that way. Because I think a lot of people view that number. So if you're spending X $1,000 on creating content, creating demand, the results, it's a little bit like SEO. You're not really going to see the real results for well over 6-9 years time, if not longer. But what you're doing is you're nurturing and developing. And I think the hardest thing, and I'm sure you found this as well, is trying to change people's view that you're going to make this investment, but you're not going to get anything. It's going to be you're looking at something further, months down the line, if not longer. And it's hard for them to go, but what do you mean? What? So that's why we always try and advocate a sort of two-pronged attack. Here's your longer burn, deeper, stronger conversations. But when we're doing some lead gen, let's really think about how and what we're going to be doing with that, and make it, again, add the authenticity, maybe share some of that content as part of your outreach and various other things like that.
Oh, absolutely. And that, so that's a good point. So if you're doing, so it's like building your financial portfolio, right? You don't want everything to be risky, and you don't want everything to be safe. So, you've got your mix here, but when you are doing standard lead gen, you're paying for those Google ads, you're paying for those placements, whatever that is, you're hammering people over the head to get them to check out your stuff. They're going to see this lead gen, and they're going to say, they're going to see this demand gen, and they're going to say, this is not just, this company's doing some interesting stuff. And because in these purchasing decisions, it might change their mind a little bit. Even if they already have the company, they know who they're going to work with. It might, there are, what you're so right about that too. When I go to purchase new software, I usually am looking for companies to convince me not to buy the one I want to buy, or they already have a name in mind. But every once in a while, I'll see something in a competitor when I'm doing my searches, and I'll say, oh, maybe this is better, and I'll change my mind. So all of that demand gen, all of those podcasts, those blogs, YouTube videos, sincere, genuine, unique stuff is going to make them say, I want to work with this company versus this other company.
100%. And I think that's where, you've got to have the courage of your convictions and just keep going, because you're putting yourself and your buyers, we have different types of buyers. You have buyers of different ages. I was reading somewhere that 40%, nearly 50% of B2B buyers are now they're 40 years old. They're under 40. So
wow.
I'm trying to remember what generation that comes under. Gen Z? No, not Gen Z.
Under 40 is millennial.
Millennials are now really big influencers and make buying decisions in B2B, huge amounts of money. So they've grown up with the internet. They didn't have the internet thrust upon them. That was always there. Social media was always there. So they're very comfortable, sharing what they're eating or doing, all this crazy kind of stuff. So if they see something on LinkedIn with someone saying, "Hey, I'm at this thing," they didn't think anything of it. Where someone who's a little bit older might go, "Oh my goodness, that's outrageous. Why are they sharing something so private with the whole world?" So it's horses for courses, right? So you've got to try and match your audience to the right thing, and maybe having a mix. You're never going to change things by thinking the same way. And I think that we've got, the older marketers that are out there, which is still run by people over 50, major organizations run by slightly older group. They're the ones who need convincing and changing their mind or their teams to actually change the way that they actually approach marketing. Because the way you used to do it 5 years ago, and it may have worked, it ain't going to work now, or it's not going to work as effectively as it did. And if you're hoping for that, well, good luck, because people are buying things differently. So I think there's all of that different things in the mix to talk about.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it's changed so much because of post-COVID era. It's changed so much because of AI. It's changed so much because of TikTok and what that did to social media. It changed so much because of the Twitter X devolvement, and now LinkedIn really becoming a location, for getting some of that Twitter content. LinkedIn has exploded over the last few years while Twitter has done whatever it's been doing.
Yes.
And so all of these are changes, and you go to the AI with this noise, and so we're craving unique, sincere content, and I think that's really 100%. It.
Yes.
Well, this was a great conversation on demand generation. Before you go, I want to talk a little bit about digital clarity. So that's your company. You're the founder and CEO of it. Tell me, obviously demand generation is something you do a lot of, and you're in the tech space. How do you work with clients, and are you only in England, or are you international, or how does?
That's a great question. I'll just give you a very brief overview of who we are and how we work and who we work with. So we're based out of London. We've got a foothold in the US. DBMM group that you touched on is based in New York.
Okay, got it.
But we are based here, but we operate globally. In fact, 30% of our customer base is in the US. And,
excellent.
And we predominantly deal in tech, B2B and tech leaders. There are core, so CEOs, CMOs, CROs, and all the other three letter
all those
other. So we deal normally with the board or with management. They're normally the ones that approach us with the challenges that they have, and we go through a very specific process that we've developed, honed over 25. We've been around a long time, well over 25 years. And really, we look at three things. Where are you right now? Yeah. What is it? You know,
Okay.
where are you? What is it you're looking to achieve? And what do we need to get you there? I know that sounds very simple.
Okay. No, simple is always the best.
Yes. And
right.
we have, and all of that's broken down. So what are the blocks and barriers stopping you? We do a process where we do a deep dive. We do a diagnosis of the organization. What is the mindset and culture? Our communications internally being siloed. Excuse me. And then we sort of drill into, what is it you want to achieve and why? Looking at competitor sets, describing what makes them different, helping them define their value proposition and why customers should choose them. Who are they? What are they? Why them? And the value that they add. And then really the building blocks. Now, whether that's a go-to-market strategy, whether that's whatever that might be, we have a very detailed program that deals with all of the aspects of their needs. That's broken down in a Gantt chart way over a period of time. These are the areas you have to fix first. These are the low-hanging fruit. And then this happens, and then you get a communication. And then, so so we're building muscle up over a period of time. And then, but only then do we then put that program together and trigger that. I mean, there's certain things that certain horses are released first whilst we're doing it. But it's really driven out of Boston Consulting Group. Big consultancy last year did a huge report, and they said that B2B companies throw away $2 trillion every year due to wasteful, old school ads and marketing approaches.
Wow.
So 2 trillion. So there's a lot of Me Too marketing, a lot of this, a lot of that. None of that's resonating with a lot of their customers. They're going elsewhere. And then they end up in this, what we call a marketing circle of fear, where they've got no clear thinking, no strategy, repetition of old methods, think they're going to get different results. And it's a spiral. It just goes down and down and down and down. And we help companies fix that. So that hopefully explains kind of what we do.
No, it does. So do you have an example, and you don't have to give a specific client, of what you're dealing with the CEO level, bigger company type, problems, but you have an example of a problem that would come with, is the problem like we used to make $100 million a year and now we're down to 80 and we don't know why? Is it something like that? Or
we get that, Jim. We get that a lot. We used to be doing this. We used to be doing that. Then we'll do a bit of analysis on there. We go through our program, and then we can see why. Well, we help them discover why those things are happening when we dig deeper, because it's either the market has changed, either the products or services are getting a bad rep, or they're not marketing in the right areas. Their customers are using someone else. There's a whole reason why that may happen. So when we do that, so there was one particular customer who had a scenario where they could not work out. They I wouldn't say almost doubled their marketing spend, but they were getting less leads.
Oh God.
The quality of leads were even worse than they were getting. And then the leads that were good, they weren't conversing. So it was like a classic death spiral in a way. And they'd spend all this money. So we were called in, we diagnosed a problem. We literally did some of the things that we talked about diagnosing, value proposition, all that, understanding who they were, creating this value proposition, and then literally pivot 5 or 6 degrees and started running our communication in the right way to the right people at the right time. And things started changing. Excuse me. That particular company had growth after 12, 18 months of about 48%.
Wow.
And last time we looked, they'd increased sales by 60%.
That's amazing. And
that's a well-known company. Well, I say well-known in its arena. So that took time, but when you look at what their software costs and how they were doing things, it was a shift of mindset, a shift of approach, getting down in the weeds and creating those building blocks, really breaking them down and saying, fix this one first. So an example of that might be, Jim, looking at consistent messaging. So what your LinkedIn homepage says compared to your Twitter homepage, compared to your consistent messaging, consistent brand, looking at their SEO, so we really had to do an audit on all of their different areas, but also look at the touch points in terms of what their customers were looking at. And when they saw that, they were horrified that they were like sending about 10, 20 different messages. So we go into all of that. And if we do that right, and they implement, this is an important part, if they implement what we ask them to do, then guess what? Things start changing.
So are you working with their internal teams? Is that like, how does that relationship go? So basically you're digging through all the data. So if I understand this correctly, so if someone comes to you with a problem, you're doing research, you're doing external research, internal research for, stuff from their books, stuff from their analysis, and then you're coming to them with a list of things to do.
Yeah, so we'll work with them. So we have a very, very clear, it's very transparent in terms of how we work. We have part one is what we call a diagnosis workshop. It's where we go in with all the stakeholders and the manager. We sit down, half-day workshop, where we go into break down their organization into 4 different areas: sales and marketing, product, culture, all these different areas, depending on who they are. But before we do that, we do a questionnaire. It's anonymous, and we get people to fill out all their biggest challenges, what they're doing, all of that stuff. It's all collated by us, analyzed by us. It creates all these different data points. We bring that along and we share those findings at the workshop, and we discuss each of those points. Could be communication internally, could be a product, could be this. And everyone has their grievances. From that, we use our own analysis where we actually say, right, how are we going to fix what they're looking to achieve? What is he looking to achieve? Here are your challenges. These are the blocks and barriers. And then we come up with a proposal for them on how they can fix it. It's very detailed. And then we work with them, depending on the relation, what they've signed up to. We'll either work with them for 12 months to achieve all of those things and bring in expertise where they don't have any. And 9 times out of 10, they don't have the people in-house to do their stuff. So we'll bring in an expert in X or expert in Y, or a HubSpot expert in this particular area, or a CRM expert or a Salesforce. And we have this relationship over the years, having been around for so long. One of the upsides of that is that we have a very detailed and extensive black book and network. And it's really powerful. And we bring our team in and help them fix. It's the right fit for the right organization and the right people. So we bring those people in and we work with them and help them to achieve it. Otherwise, they go round and round in circles trying to do the same thing. And then they'll revert to type because it's safer and warmer. And they'll go back to just doing, let's just carry on doing what we're doing before. But we try and break that habit, bad habit. So yeah, that's how we work.
I've always said that if marketing is done right, there's a little bit of business coaching, business development in there, and it sounds like that's part of what you guys are. It's clearly part of what you're doing. That's beyond marketing. That's helping businesses grow. There's a focus there on marketing, but yes. If you're doing it right, you have to ask, why am I marketing this? Or should we be marketing, like you said, just turning 6 degrees might change everything. One of the podcast episodes that I've recorded that will come out soon was about the Stanley Cup. I don't know if you heard about that marketing craze, but it was a
Yes, I know.
100-year-old company that marketed to men.
I've seen them around. Yes, I've seen them around. Yes.
Switched to marketing to women and grew by 10 times. 10x growth. Amazing. So that was a pivot. It was not a company like yours that came to them and said to do that, although they should have hired you. I think instead it was
if only they had.
Instead it was Uber fans. So they at least followed that one. They listened to Uber fans, and eventually it was after a lot of pushing from them, and they pivoted. And so sometimes you need someone like Reggie to come in and help you. When we're in our own companies, we only see what we want to see. Like it's our baby, it's our brand. We've been doing it for 25 years or 20 years. And so it's hard to see what's in the way. And sometimes you need someone to come in and,
move, show the way.
That
stuff. 100%. Yes. It's I think the old saying is the only constant in life is change. So things are always changing. And
right.
Who'd have thought 18 months ago we'd be talking about AI? I mean, it wasn't a thing as such. Well, it was. It was.
Nobody was talking about it.
yeah, exactly. People were talking about robot. It's Blade Runner kind of stuff. It's really science fiction stuff, and suddenly it's here and it's getting bigger. And who knows what's going to happen in another 6 months? And equally, do you remember the Bored Ape NFTs and Web3 and all those things that were going to be the next big thing?
Where to go?
Where did it go? So it's really so there is no straight line, as we know. But yeah, you're right. Marketing for us is almost a byproduct of getting people to think differently. And if you think differently, you are what you think. And for organizations, they are what their management think. So therefore, we help them to think better. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was a great conversation. So if you're a C-suite person, CEO, CFO, one of those levels, you should reach out to Reggie. Reggie, where can they find you, and where can they find Digital Clarity?
They can find us on Google. They can type in digital-clarity.com, go straight to our website. They can find me by typing my name into LinkedIn or into Twitter or Instagram. But yes, just go to LinkedIn and connect with me. Love to have a conversation.
That'd be great. And we'll have all those links in the show notes. Again, Reggie thinks the right way. You should reach out. If we ever get to be a company that size and I'm in my own way, I'm going to reach out to Reggie and have him help me out. So you should do it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Jim. No, it's been wonderful chatting to you, and thank you again. It's been great.
And I can now say this because it's been 3 Fridays in a row that I've released our podcast. So I will see you all next Friday. Thank you so much.